What's up guys, my name is Blake and this is my 1977 Cutlass project, and it is the furthest thing from running right now. There's practically nothing in the interior and the entire wiring harness is in the garbage. Today I want to go over why the Cutlass is sitting as it is, even though it was running just fine back in the spring, and I want to talk about how I plan on getting this thing back on the road soon. First we'll start with a little more about the car. This is a 1977 Cutlass Salon. It was restored at one point before I owned it, and it was painted this bright pink, which I'm told was Hot Fuchsia Kiss from DuPont. After it was restored, it sat in a garage for 10 years, which is when I found it back in 2019. Unfortunately, since then, it has sat outside because I don't have a place to store it, and I have neglected the hell out of this thing, regretfully, obviously. Most of my time and effort going into my supercharged BMW. The paint is bubbling all over the place. The seals are either completely gone or just cracked up in garbage, and the floors are full of holes now. And the last issue that really caused me to tear this whole thing apart was that the starter wasn't getting power sometimes. It would just not do anything. I'm not sure if that's a starter issue or if the wiring was just dodgy. It actually left me stranded a couple times. Luckily, I got it to start eventually after a bunch of trying, but it definitely sucked. But because of all these issues, I finally decided to commit to turning this thing into what I plan on being, a fully stripped caged NASCAR-inspired race car. Back in the late 70s, these Cutlasses used to be all up in NASCAR. It actually won a championship back in 1978, driven by the one and only Cale Yarborough. And that specific car that won is actually going up for auction soon at the Mecum auctions down in Florida. It's unfortunate I don't have the money to go down there and buy it, because I would. But I'm surprised you don't see more people modifying these or even owning them at all. Anyways, I want this car to be as close to that car and as close to full race as I possibly can, and it all starts here. This is the wiring harness I was just talking about. It's mostly junk. Most of it was disconnected or probably shorting out on me. And there was a lot of wiring that I had done myself back in 2019, which was back when I was still learning how to work on cars, so all that wiring was pretty much junk as well. I'm honestly surprised this car hasn't burned down already. I've also completely gutted what was once a full interior, and it's gonna stay that way. Once I get the floors patched up, I plan on painting the whole thing silver or white. I haven't decided yet. I also have this aluminum race dash from Jegs, which I plan on installing. Now, one thing that's gonna be tricky is figuring out a seating situation. Now, I could just throw in these factory seats, which are fine. They were really comfy, I guess. But again, I want full race car stuff, so I plan on running a set of Kirkey's or Butler Racing aluminum seats. The thing is, those seats require a rear attachment to a roll cage, which I do not have yet. So I'm either gonna have to figure out some way to brace that and drive it around maybe unsafely, or like I said, just throw in the factory ones for now. Now, way back when I first bought this car, it had what I believe was the original Rocket 350 engine in it. And back in 2020, I swapped in this big block Oldsmobile 455. It's a 7.5 liter engine, producing probably like 5 horsepower. Now, the twin carbs was a cool upgrade, but it was way too much fuel for what this engine was set up for. This engine still has an original set of heads marked with the letter J, which are junk. They're the worst heads that Oldsmobile pretty much ever designed for this engine. There might be worse, but they're down there with the worst ones. And because of that, when I mash the throttle in this car, it just glugs and doesn't go anywhere. And this engine also weighs about 600 pounds from the factory, and adding this big ass tunnel ram that also weighs a lot. This thing weighs way too much, especially for a car that I want to handle decently. And another problem I have with this engine is the crankshaft doesn't have a spot for a pilot bearing, so there is no way for me to manual swap this without getting the crankshaft machined for a pilot bearing. All those issues with this engine, and the fact that I want this thing to sound like a stock car as well, I do plan on building a rowdy Chevy 350 or some variation of a Chevy small block, paired with probably a 4-speed Muncie or like a T56. I think it would be an awesome setup in this car. Now, one of the biggest hurdles I'm gonna have to face with this car is trying to get this thing to handle anything close to what the NASCAR unit handled like. Now, the stock setup would be the absolute best, only if it was on a Cadillac. It is hilariously soft. I could go flat out over a speed bump and I probably wouldn't even feel it. Which again, would be cool if I wasn't trying to make this thing handle decently. And it's honestly really sketchy, especially on the highway. Now, there's a handful of kits that I can buy for this car to make it handle decently. There's actually coilover conversion kits, which I would love to buy from Alden American or QA1. Now, although these kits are super expensive, I don't think I can really get around doing that. If I want this thing to handle anything like a race car, I'm gonna need a nice setup. Now, all these future plans involve money and skills that I don't have, so let's start with something that I can do. My first goal with the Cutlass is to get the engine wired up. That way I can actually turn the car around without having to push it. Now, the car isn't gonna have anything besides the very basics. There's not gonna be a radio, there's not gonna be any amenities, just engine, switches, lights, and that's it. So I'm doing this 100% DIY, and I want to make it as serviceable as possible. Now, I did very briefly start on doing some wiring. I ran literally like 2 or 3 wires, but I kind of came to one quick issue. This is either the heater box or the AC box for this car. First of all, it didn't work ever since I owned it, and it was taking up all the best real estate for my fuse box and my MSD box. So I decided to rip it out. But when I did rip it out, there's now a big hole directly above where I want my fuse panels, which is open to underneath the hood and would absolutely drench my fuse box if I didn't do anything about it. So before I actually start doing the wiring part, I gotta make sure my wiring isn't gonna get completely drenched as soon as we get rain. Now, I think that pretty much sums up everything about this car for now. I plan on recording my process and actually transforming this car with you guys. But if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. And if you want to see more content, because this is only my second video on YouTube, I've been posting on TikTok for quite a while. So there's a lot more content to be had on there. I go by the same handle, Blake Man, everywhere. So you can find me pretty much everywhere. Thanks for watching, guys.